Part of this webinar series I'll be doing with Dr. Scott Miller in the coming weeks is going to look at how we can take our evidence-based research and theory and link that specifically to our outdoor therapy practice. Now, as daunting as this sounds, I promise you, as a painfully slow reader, this will involve simple-to-use measures and tasks in order to help us all become outcome-informed practitioners, if you will. To do this, I'd like to do a bit of a thought experiment today. Most of us consider taking our clinical practice to the outdoors because of our personal joy of being outside. I know for me, I'm terrible at sitting down, and I'll show you during the webinar series that my outcomes on this very couch are actually not as good as my outcomes in the outdoors. In essence, I'm a much more engaging practitioner when I'm outside. Weirdly enough, clients that I've taken canoeing, I also have better outcomes with. And again, I'll show you all of this as we go through and nitpick Will's outcomes and shortcomings. But I'd like you to think about these concepts of nature is healing, for example. And of course, there's tons of evidence to support that being outside is good for our well-being. It helps with restoration, stress relief. It also includes a whole bunch of physiological effects like reducing our blood pressure. That said, nature can just as easily kick our ass. We can feel lost, scared, alone. It can be dark and cold. We can be wet and miserable. And today, the case I'd like you to think about is from a young woman in Denmark. She had been in the mental health care system since a very young age. And in her adolescence, her case manager at the time said, "You are going to engage with this outdoor therapy group," which was run by 2 psychologists. And she wrote, and I have it written here, "My first thought was annoyance over being left in the forest with a couple of old nuts. That thought was short-lived." And here's what she says about how she felt about her outdoor therapy experience. "My self-esteem has grown a mile, which makes a lot of things easier in my everyday life. What stood out the most was the little moments when we were out in the woods where I could find myself healing. When living a turbulent life, that kind of peace is a rarity, and it is difficult to see yourself. Being surrounded by nature, I think, is one of the best things you can do for your mental pain, and I wouldn't have thought that before entering the program." So consider some of the core conditions of this young woman's experience. What did this facilitator do to help make sure nature was, in fact, healing and not the scary or daunting place that it can also be? I will see you all soon, and looking forward to engaging with you all in that webinar series.